Ozzy Osbourne has never been one to bite his tongue.
Actually, Bill Ward was epileptic.
Was he?
Yeah, that's why he used to play like that.
The Prince of Darkness built his legendary career on unfiltered honesty in his music and in every interview he's ever given. Over the years, he's been surprisingly blunt about the musicians he couldn't stand to be around. From heavy metal rivals to shocking pop stars, here are the 6 artists who earned Ozzy's harshest hatred. At number 6, we have Kanye West. When Ozzy Osbourne publicly called out one of the biggest names in hip-hop, nobody saw it coming. The feud began in early 2024 when Kanye West asked to use a sample from a Black Sabbath song. At the time, Kanye was working on his album Vultures 1 with Ty Dolla $ign. He wanted to use a specific recording of the 1983 live performance of Iron Man from the US festival. The request seemed simple enough because artists sample music all the time, but Ozzy Osbourne shut it down, and this wasn't a normal rejection. The Prince of Darkness had a very specific reason: Kanye's history of making anti-Semitic statements and spreading hate. Sharon later said they get tons of sample requests, but the moment they saw Kanye's name, they refused immediately. Kanye didn't take no for an answer. On February 8, 2024, he used the Iron Man sample anyway during a listening party in Chicago. The track, called Carnival, included the unauthorized audio. When Ozzy found out the next day, he was furious. On February 9th, Ozzy posted an all-caps message on Twitter that instantly went viral. He wrote, "Kanye West asked permission to sample a section of a 1983 live performance of Iron Man from the US festival without vocals and was refused permission because he is an anti-Semite and has caused untold heartache to many. He went ahead and used the sample anyway at his album listening party last night. I want no association with this man." The tweet went nuclear, and over 21 million people saw it. And then Sharon Osbourne came out even stronger in an interview. She said, "Kanye f***ed with the wrong Jew this time." She called West a disrespectful anti-Semite who spreads nothing but hate. She made it clear there were no excuses for spreading hate or discrimination. But the Osbournes didn't stop there. They sent a cease and desist letter to Kanye's legal team. Sharon told reporters they were considering legal action. She even went as far as calling Kanye dangerous. They made it absolutely clear that they wanted nothing to do with him. When the album finally dropped on February 10, Kanye had removed the unauthorized sample. Kanye swapped it for a generic guitar riff that mimicked Black Sabbath, making sure to avoid Ozzy's voice. He clearly knew he'd crossed a line. 2 weeks later, Ozzy spoke to Rolling Stone and showed zero regret. Ozzy said, "Well, nobody else would f***ing do it, did they?" He said that with everything happening in the world, no one needs more discrimination. Ozzy made it clear he didn't want any of his music tied to hate speech in any way. He said it's wrong to stay silent about people like Kanye, and he refused to let his music be tied to anything discriminatory. And that's how Ozzy Osbourne and Kanye West ended up on opposite sides, and why the Prince of Darkness wants nothing to do with him. At number 5, we've got Bill Ward, and this one hurts, because it's the story of how Black Sabbath's original drummer lost a 40-year friendship in the ugliest way possible. Bill Ward was there from day one. He was a key figure in creating heavy metal in Birmingham, working alongside Ozzy, Tony Iommi, and Geezer Butler. He played on every classic Sabbath album with Ozzy from 1970 to 1978. These guys weren't just bandmates, they were brothers who grew up on the same streets. So when Black Sabbath announced a full reunion on November 11th, 2011, all 4 original members back together, fans were thrilled, but the excitement didn't last long. By February 2012, Bill Ward walked away. According to Ward, the contract he was offered was impossible to sign. He said that he and Geezer were offered only 5% of the profits each. Tony would get 10%, and Ozzy would get the rest. Ward felt the whole deal was insulting and deeply unfair. And to make things worse, Sabbath was already promoting shows with his name and face on the posters. Ward felt obligated to be honest with the fans, so he put out a public statement explaining why he wasn't signing. Then Ozzy fired back hard. In August 2013, he told the New York Daily News, "I don't think he could have done the gig, to be honest. He's incredibly overweight. A drummer has to be in shape. He's already had 2 heart attacks. I don't want to be responsible for his life." He didn't stop there. Ozzy told Classic Rock magazine that Bill showed up looking like an old guy and didn't have the stamina to play for an hour. He even claimed Ward had sticky notes all over his drum kit because he couldn't remember the parts. It got personal, and it got mean. By April 2015, Bill Ward had had enough. He posted on Facebook demanding a public apology from Ozzy. He said he'd heard nothing but insults and lies and wouldn't work with Ozzy again until those statements were taken back. Ozzy responded with a harsh Facebook post of his own, opening with, "What the f*** are you on about?" He said Tony, Geezer, and himself didn't believe Ward could handle a full 2-hour set with a nightly drum solo, especially with Tony battling cancer at the time. Ozzy said the band didn't have the time or flexibility to wait for him. He also pointed out that Ward had been hospitalized multiple times in 2013 and insisted that proved their point. He ended by telling Ward to stop playing the victim and be shabaj, honest with yourself and the fans. Ward fired back the next day. He said it's difficult to care about someone who believes he's telling the truth while spreading things that aren't true. He defended himself point by point, admitting he was overweight when rehearsals began, but insisting he was ready to record. He asked why they rehearsed in August 2011 if he was so unhealthy, why they announced the reunion on 11/11/11, and why Ozzy called him in January 2012, asking when he'd be back for more rehearsals. Ward also blamed Sharon Osbourne for a lot of the tension. On Eddie Trunk's podcast, he said she'd disliked him for years and suggested she played a major role in the harsh contract offers. He said the public attacks, especially from Ozzy, destroyed their friendship. When Black Sabbath played their last concert ever on February 4th, 2017 in Birmingham, Bill Ward wasn't there. The four men who started the band together didn't get to end it together. Ward told Rolling Stone he mourned the loss of 3 of his best friends, and that's how Bill Ward and Ozzy Osbourne's lifelong friendship crumbled through bad contracts, public insults, and trust that never recovered. At number 4, we have Tony Iommi. Tony Iommi and Ozzy Osbourne were schoolmates back in Birmingham. When Iommi and drummer Bill Ward answered Ozzy's ad seeking bandmates, Iommi recognized him right away. Iommi even told Bill Ward to skip the audition because he recognized Ozzy from school. But they gave it a chance, and that decision led to the birth of Black Sabbath in 1968. The tension between them never really went away. Their tension even boiled over into a serious physical fight in the early 70s. Iommi later described the incident in his autobiography, Iron Man. It started with Ozzy and Geezer Butler fighting in a hotel room. When Iommi tried to break it up, a drunk Ozzy took a swing at him. Iommi responded by knocking Ozzy unconscious with one punch to the jaw. The relationship was always based on intimidation. Ozzy admitted in a 2022 interview with Apple Music that Tony used to intimidate the shit out of him. Ozzy said there was a period of time where they were arch enemies. He explained that he often felt the others made the real decisions while he was treated as just the singer. Ozzy also told another podcast that Tony is one of the few people who can walk into a room and instantly intimidate him. He said Tony intimidates the out of him and Tony knows it. Ozzy added that Iommi hates being told what to do and won't hesitate to throw a punch. Things exploded in April 1979 when Black Sabbath fired Ozzy. The band had been trying to record their 9th album in Los Angeles. They rented a house in Bel Air for nearly a year, but barely got any work done. Iommi said Ozzy was not into it anymore and had done too much. Drugs and alcohol. Tony said Ozzy would often be passed out on the couch when the band was trying to work. Iommi stated in his book that it was not just his decision to fire Ozzy. He said it was a decision made by all 3 remaining members. Iommi explained they could either break up or carry on without Ozzy. Ozzy felt deeply betrayed by getting fired. He wrote in his autobiography, I Am Ozzy, that firing him for being messed up was hypocritical. Ozzy pointed out that everyone in the band was struggling with drugs at the time. He also said Tony would purposely wind him up in the studio, making him redo takes even when nothing was wrong. When Black Sabbath reunited for tours starting in 1997, the tension continued. Ozzy said the reunion tours were like stepping back for him. It was the same old thing with Tony saying it was not an Ozzy show and not his band. Ozzy admitted there was a lot of unsettlement and he did not enjoy it. In a 2018 interview with The Times, Ozzy was asked directly if he likes working with Tony Iommi. Ozzy said, "Not really." At number 3, we have Bob Daisley and his feud with Ozzy Osbourne, one of the longest and messiest battles in rock history. And for more than 4 decades, the fight has been about money, credit, and respect. Daisley wasn't merely the bassist on Ozzy's first 2 solo albums, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. He played a significant role in their creation. He wrote most of the lyrics, helped shape the sound, and played on classics like Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, and Flying High Again. Those songs helped define early 80s metal. Originally, the plan wasn't to launch Ozzy as a solo star at all. The lineup, Ozzy, Daisley, Randy Rhoads, and Lee Kerslake, originally planned to be a band called Blizzard of Oz after Ozzy was fired from Black Sabbath in 1979. In the studio, the lineup clicked instantly. But once the albums came out, management pushed everything under Ozzy's name. Daisley says the rest of the band were treated like hired hands, not equal creative partners. That's when the trouble began. Daisley said he wasn't being paid properly. He was paid for songwriting, but he says he never got the performance royalties for playing on the records. He also said the Osbournes were taking 25% of his income instead of the agreed-upon 10%. In 1986, Daisley and Kerslake sued Don Arden and Jet Records for unpaid royalties and won. But they had no idea the Osbournes had secretly bought the rights to Ozzy's catalog back in 1983. When Daisley found out, he filed a new lawsuit in 2002. The case was dismissed, and he later said he was devastated. Then things took an unexpected turn. After the lawsuit, Sharon Osbourne had Daisley and Kerslake's original bass and drum tracks removed from Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. She brought in Robert Trujillo and Mike Borden to completely re-record the bass and drum tracks. Daisley was furious. He called the new tracks pathetic and said he thought it was a joke when he first heard them. Even Borden, who played on the replacements, admitted the situation was messed up. Sharon didn't hold back either. In a 2019 interview, she said, "He's a sad old fuck that played on two of the greatest albums in the genre, and he can't get over the fact that we didn't use him further." She even admitted that part of the reason for re-recording the tracks was to teach him a lesson, calling herself a mean. When Daisley sued again in 2016 for $2 million, Ozzy's camp responded by saying he had received royalty checks for 36 years totaling millions, calling the lawsuit harassment. But Ozzy's own account didn't match Sharon's. In his autobiography, I Am Ozzy, he wrote that he didn't even know she was re-recording the parts and said he would have preferred the originals, directly contradicting Sharon's earlier claim that it was his idea. The original recordings were restored for the 30th anniversary reissues in 2011. Daisley said that didn't change anything financially and that he still wasn't receiving the royalties he believed he was owed. Despite everything, Daisley has said he doesn't hate anyone and doesn't like burning bridges. In 2018, he even said he wouldn't rule out making peace if things could be resolved properly. He wished Ozzy well. He simply wanted to be paid fairly. Meanwhile, Sharon continued taking shots at him as recently as 2019, downplaying his contributions and implying he was just a session player. At number 2, we have Ronnie James Dio. Ronnie James Dio became Ozzy Osbourne's replacement in Black Sabbath in 1979 after Ozzy was fired for substance abuse. Before joining Sabbath, Dio was already known from Rainbow for his powerful, theatrical voice. The first meeting between Ozzy and Dio was anything but friendly. In the 2025 documentary, Ozzy, No Escape From Now, Sharon Osbourne revealed that Ozzy once even tried to jab Dio with a fork during an argument at the Rainbow Bar. The feud went public in 1982 when both released live albums at almost the same time. Black Sabbath with Dio put out Live Evil, while Ozzy released Speak of the Devil, both filled with Black Sabbath songs. Ozzy's album came out first in November 1982, and Ozzy was furious. In a 1982 interview with Hank Thompson, Ozzy blasted Black Sabbath for taking 15 years to release a live album and then choosing to release it alongside his. He was especially angry that they included classics like Paranoid and Iron Man. Ozzy compared Sabbath performing those songs without him to four strangers calling themselves the Beatles. He insisted he was bigger than Sabbath ever was and claimed it was sad they still relied on decade-old songs. He didn't stop there. Ozzy declared that those songs were his songs, that fans demanded he perform them, and that Black Sabbath was dead now. He said Dio's version of the band wasn't Black Sabbath anymore, it was a completely different group. Ronnie James Dio fired back with one of the sharpest responses in rock history. In a radio interview, Dio said arguing with Ozzy was like dueling with an unarmed man. He had the sword, while Ozzy had no idea what a weapon even was. He called Ozzy unintelligent and said he could easily back it up. Dio also pointed out that Ozzy didn't write the Black Sabbath lyrics, Geezer Butler did. Dio reminded everyone that hits like War Pigs, Paranoid, and Iron Man came from Geezer's pen, not Ozzy's. Then Dio delivered one of his most famous insults about Ozzy's singing. He said, "I doubt very much that Ozzy could carry a tune if you put a radio in a suitcase and gave it to him in his hand." Dio claimed people who had worked with Ozzy for over a decade knew this to be true. Dio continued the verbal assault in later interviews. In 1985, he said Ozzy was lucky to have Randy Rhoads, and that when Ozzy lost Randy, he lost most of his success. He added that Ozzy was fortunate to have Bob Daisley writing songs because Ozzy was a non-writer. Their rivalry didn't cool down in the 90s. In 2002, Dio explained why he refused to open for Ozzy during the 1992 tour. He said Ozzy had insulted Tony Iommi, called him a homosexual, and repeatedly attacked Dio publicly. Dio also criticized the Osbournes, saying it reduced a heavy metal pioneer to a caricature. When Dio died of cancer on May 16, 2010, Ozzy's response was surprisingly calm. He told Rolling Stone that any death in the music world was sad and said he had offered help to Dio months earlier. And those are the reasons Ozzy Osbourne and Ronnie James Dio fueled one of metal's most brutal, long-lasting feuds. At number 1, we have Bruce Dickinson. Bruce Dickinson is the legendary frontman of Iron Maiden, one of the biggest heavy metal bands in the world. In the summer of 2005, Iron Maiden was co-headlining Ozzfest with Black Sabbath. It should have been a perfect pairing of metal legends. Instead, it turned into total war. Sharon Osbourne said Bruce was taking shots at them from the stage every night. She claimed Bruce mocked Sabbath for playing the same old songs and joked that Maiden didn't need a teleprompter or a reality show to stay relevant. Bruce allegedly complained about the venues being too corporate and ticket prices being outrageous. Sharon also claimed he said on the show, "This is not the Ozzfest, this is Maidenfest." What Bruce didn't realize was that Sharon was quietly letting it build while planning her revenge. She decided the last show in San Bernardino, California on August 20th, 2005 would be payback time. Sharon gathered about 20 people to disrupt Bruce during Iron Maiden's set. Many of them were Sharon's chemotherapy nurses because she was battling cancer at the time. She loaded them up with eggs, cans of bean soup, vegetables, and peanut butter, and told them to pelt the singer. The attack began from the front row during Iron Maiden's performance. Eggs and cans were thrown toward Bruce and the band. Sharon also had the sound cut during 3 songs, including Run to the Hills, Hallowed Be Thy Name, and Number of the Beast. Before Maiden took the stage, a voice chanting, "Ozzy, Ozzy," was played over the PA system. Sharon used every tactic she could to sabotage the performance. Bruce Dickinson was visibly furious as the chaos continued on stage. He addressed the crowd directly, saying, "You might have noticed that a few wise asses decided they would go down the supermarket and buy a few fucking eggs and start throwing them at us down in the front." Ozzy said he had no idea Bruce was insulting him every night. In a 2010 interview with The Quietus, Ozzy said Bruce was going on stage slagging him off, and that if Bruce didn't like the tour, he should have jumped off it. In later interviews, Ozzy kept the same stance. He said, "Bruce Dickinson is a great singer, but as a person, he's not very nice." In the 2024 Billboard Oral History of Ozzfest, Ozzy said Bruce would go on stage and say bad things to the audience, and that if he didn't want the gig, he should have just said so. Sharon was even more outspoken about Bruce. In her 2005 statement after the incident, Sharon said she did cut their sound and that Ozzfest was their tour. She said Dickinson didn't have the manners to realize that when you are invited into someone's home, you don't disrespect your host. Sharon told Howard Stern in 2006 that she sent people out loaded with eggs and peanut butter to hit Iron Maiden. In 2022, Sharon called Bruce Dickinson a fucking asshole and said he was jealous of Ozzy. She claimed Bruce could walk in anywhere and go unnoticed, calling him a faceless singer to the general public. Bruce later issued a calm statement thanking the fans who stuck with Maiden through the difficult set. Years later, in 2017, Bruce told NME the whole thing was a complete storm in a teacup. So these are the reasons Bruce Dickinson and the Osbournes had one of the most shocking and public feuds metal has ever witnessed. And that wraps up the 6 artists Ozzy Osbourne hated the most. Whether you think his reasons were justified or just pure rock and roll chaos, there's no denying these feuds left a mark on metal history. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more wild stories from the world of rock.